Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Talking Filthy, police podcast. I'm here with an old good friend. He's not old, but our friendship is old. It goes back quite a ways with the police department. Mike is, I'll let him go into some detail, but welcome to the show, Mike.
No, I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited. I think we have a lot of good topics to talk about.
Tell us a little bit about your career, especially the particulars to what we're going to talk about and so forth.
Sure. Yeah. So I was hired on in 2006. So I've got about 15 years on with my police department. During that time, I've been, and I really don't say this to sound cheesy, but I've been kind of truly blessed with some of the opportunities that I've been given in my career. So I got made to be an FTO, a field training officer, pretty early on in my career, and that was rewarding in itself because it kind of segued me into the kind of the whole, I guess, broad spectrum of what I'm passionate about. That's just training. So I got made to be an FTO pretty early in my career. I think I had about 3 years on when I started training other officers. And I was fortunate enough to become a general instructor, which is like the prerequisite, if you will, for just about everything else in our career field. So the way AZ Post, or our governing board, Arizona Post, works is that you have to have that general instructor certification on board before you're able to kind of segue into some of the other proficiencies that are offered through Arizona Post. And I guess the main one that we're here to talk about today is, so I was made a physical fitness instructor back in 2010. So I've been heavily involved in physical training since then. And 2017, I actually went through the process to become a subject matter expert for Arizona Post in the realm of physical fitness. And then kind of since then, I think if I had to pick one discipline that's been consistent throughout my career, I started doing CrossFit back in 2010, kind of when it was barely taken off. I went to a local gym here in town and went there for a few months. And just because I'm just kind of a cheap guy, I decided, like, hey, why am I paying all this money every month to go to this gym when I can just go buy my own equipment? So I went and did that. I bought my own equipment, and I did my own programming for about, I would say probably about a good 9 years before I joined another CrossFit gym. And since then, I've become a level 1 and a level 2 CrossFit trainer. So, and I'm now coaching at one of the local gyms here in town. I'm actually wearing their shirts. Formerly CrossFit Milo, it's now Milo Fitness Factory. So I've been doing that for a little while now, and it's super rewarding. Their clientele is a very broad spectrum of, you got some young people, you got some older people, and in between that, you have a wide variety of physical ability and skill level, and it's just very rewarding to be in there and taking somebody who's never been inside a box before and kind of working them through some of the movements and, some of the intense workouts that CrossFit's known for.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of actually Carrie, the owner of Milo Fitness, one of them, her husband, Alan, they're both retired firefighters, so they understand first responders, they understand fitness, great gym. But Carrie actually trained me when I was doing it. We were kind of in the Masters League. Fucking sad. I have to be in the Masters group, but it is what it is. But they're awesome people. My point where I'm going with this. So that's cool that you're in with that gym. And for our listeners, that if you want to go to a gym and you want to go to, there are a lot of them that are very first responder friendly. But I know that one for a fact is run exclusively by first responder owners. So great gym. So your background really is, for the last 10 years or so, is exclusively heavy in the fitness side of law enforcement, keeping cops in shape to do the job out there in the field. Obviously, you have the firearms and use of force, defensive tactics, and so forth. But while we're on fitness, how far has that come in the last 10 years for law enforcement?
Oh, I think it's, I'm pretty proud to say that we were just talking about this the other day amongst myself, some of the other physical fitness instructors, and we were in a meeting with the 100 Club. The 100 Club is a pretty big organization statewide that kind of helps first responders they're going through hard times, whether it be mental, physical, financial. They're able to provide a lot of assistance. And one of the things that they have, or I guess prospectively want to get going, is another component to their app where it would be like some workouts that are kind of already like a library of workouts that are in there that people can just, people who don't want to do their own programming can basically just open up the app, say, oh, I want to do some HIIT today, click on a workout, and there it is, boom, all laid out for them. So we were saying that during that meeting, amongst myself, some of the other physical fitness subject matter experts across the state, is that I think it is becoming more normal now for cops to kind of put themselves out there, whether it be on social media or just as kind of that person within their agency to kind of be that person that puts the good foot forward and gets a physical training program or some sort of a wellness program started within the agency, because they do want to be that guy or that girl that people go to coach people up on PT, whether it be running, whether it be CrossFit, whether it be HIIT, whether it be some sort of yoga, all of those things that I just kind of touched on right now. So back in I believe it was 2017, myself and about 5 other of the physical fitness instructors on the department started what we call the wellness team. And since then, since 2017, we've instituted just a numerous amount of things, and I'm going to call them accomplishments because they really, really are. Because as you and I both know, when we first started, me 2006, and you well beyond that, it was, you always just worked out on your own time. Like, you had to find your own time and pencil that in and make sure that it was something that if you were one of the ones that took pride in keeping yourself, physically fit for the job, you had to carve out your own time in your daily routine to make sure that was accomplished. So what we've instituted here at my department is you're actually given 30 minutes of wellness time each day. And that's varying across assignments on how much that really gets used, but by and large, I think most people are utilizing in that some sort of fashion. And what the wellness team has done is we've created a variety of opportunities for people to kind of explore. If they were a person who strictly did weightlifting, we are offering yoga, we're offering functional fitness. I'm teaching a sandbag class, a track running group. We offer like meditation. And this last year, 2021, or the current year, I should say, 2021, May of 2021, we actually instituted our first wellness day. So it was a whole day just dedicated to kind of mental, physical, spiritual, and financial wellness. It was a whole day just allotted to kind of just taking care of yourself as a whole spectrum of a person. And I believe one of your, I guess, recent guests on the show, Erica Gaines with TAC Mobility, was out there, and she was kind of teaching people, just little maintenance tips, because as we know, our job is very, very hard on your body, and just little maintenance tips that can help, relieve some of the shoulder pressure, some of the hamstring, ankle, shoulder related injuries that cops are notorious for. Just trying to kind of help be proactive and prevent some of those injuries from happening. And also, I'm going to highlight a couple of cases because I think they are noteworthy. Within the last, I would say, year and a half, one of our community service officers who works like, so a community service officer is, or community service officer is, they basically ride around town in a patrol car, and they kind of take the lower level calls. Some of the accidents, some of the stuff that's not necessarily in progress, burglaries, maybe some larcenies. Their job is expanding exponentially within our department. So this CSO decided that, hey, I'm a CSO, but I want to try to make the transition into becoming a sworn officer. So this person started coming out with me. She was coming out to the track workouts and coming to some of the sandbag workouts. And when she first showed up, She couldn't really run for more than like 30 seconds without stopping. And so I was like, okay, like, hey, I will make you one promise. You show up, if you're consistent and you show up, I will give you 110%. All I ask is that you give me that same 110% back. But it's going to take some consistency on your part of showing up and doing the work. Um, I kid you not, I can probably count on one hand how many times she's missed a session for the last, 52 weeks. Um, yeah, and it's either she's been on vacation or some pre-planned thing that she just couldn't make it because of time allotments or whatever. She went from not being able to run 30 seconds continuously to like 2 weekends ago ran her first 5K, and now during these sandbag workouts, believe it or not, is starting to smoke me and do better than I am, and it's pretty humbling, and it's pretty to me. I don't, that's not a shot at my pride or my ego. I actually appreciate the fact that she's doing better than me now because, and I think I think I've heard you say this before, is my philosophy is always I'm trying to train the next generation to be better than I could ever dream of being. I want to pay it back forward that much to where I'm leaving this place better than I found it. Maybe not necessarily a place, but the people that I work around, I want to give them tools that were given to me and bestowed upon me, and I want to give them those tools that are even sharper than when I got them. That's my goal, and that's always kind of been my goal and my philosophy.
That's good. So you run these sessions they're kind of independently. They're not scheduled training in the sense of from the agency. They're just things that you have to coordinate with your team to provide settings and equipment and locations and times for cops to work out. And it seems like it was growing when I left, from just a couple people to a few more, and I'm sure it's grown even since then. And to hear that's pretty awesome. That someone has stepped up that dramatic, that much of a growth in 52 weeks, a year's worth of training. So, what's the future? Best case scenario for you guys in law enforcement, locally, but across the state. What do you guys anticipate, or is in the works for fitness?
So I know one of the things that we've kind of discussed as it's really never been done before, but I'm going to use the term SME. When I say SME, that just means subject matter expert.
Yeah.
So yes, the SME committee for PT has really been trying to kind of incorporate yearly like professional development type stuff that are available to the SMEs, so they can go back there and kind of deliver that training and that information back to the agency. And we're kind of hoping that we're able to kind of broaden our horizons as the board of experts who are arguably responsible for all the physical training, at least pertaining to police officers in the state of Arizona. We're kind of responsible for that, so we want to have all that roll downhill, for lack of a better term. We want to, for me at my agency, I know I've already kind of, at 15 years, theoretically in 5 years I can retire. Our other detective, who's kind of the other head or, co-chair, we don't really have that title, but if I was to give her a title, it would be co-chair of kind of what we started. She's already at 21 years and she can retire any day now. So my goal within my agency is I've already identified a couple of younger officers who I can pass that torch on to, who are dedicated, they're good instructors, they're just good people. Like, they're good people who want to help and they want to be a driving force with physical fitness within the agency. And for me, yeah, I understand like tenure has its place. And yeah, I would rather have somebody, with 10, 12, maybe even 15 years on to kind of pass that torch on to. And it's not that I haven't identified anybody like that. I just see it as these people have kind of come forward and said, hey, I want to be involved. I am passionate in this. I am willing to learn. I'm willing to broaden my horizons, and I'm willing to kind of put myself out there because I'm so passionate about helping others achieve their fitness goals, or just flat out be healthy and be able to perform the job tasks of a police officer, which we all know, like we've all seen them in our career. And it's I quite frankly, at one point when I met my wife, I was that guy for a little while that I got a little bit out of shape. I never stopped going to the gym. I never stopped working out, but I probably wasn't maintaining my diet as I should have. And I think we've all had that. For anybody to say that they haven't had a lapse in either diet or going to the gym, I would just say that person's a liar. Like, I think we've all succumbed to that, especially for me. When I met, the girl who is now my wife, it was, man, I'm going out to dinner every night. We're hanging out. I'm going to skip the gym because I want to spend more time with her. I think we've all had some sort of an event like that in our life that, we kind of slip and fall out of balance. And it takes, for me, it took, in 2014, I got assigned as the basic training class officer at our training academy, Selecti. And so that job, I guess for lack of a better way to define it, just to kind of give people some like a snapshot of what that's like. It's the equivalent of like a military type drill instructor where you're, basically responsible for the training curriculum, but you're also responsible for correcting behavior with maybe some physical fitness exercises. For me, getting that assignment was a huge wake-up call because I was in great shape when it came to weightlifting and being really strong, but I was kind of in that same scenario that I just described about our CSO. For me to run more than a mile was an event. Like, it was a big deal. So I really had to kind of focus more attention on running and being in that sort of shape, the Metcon, calisthenics. And I really arguably kind of stopped lifting weights. And so my journey, kind of get back on track of how this started. My journey switched from trying to be a big, strong guy to a guy that can sustain a 3-mile run and do 100 burpees during that 3-mile run. And I had to make significant changes to my diet, my body type, my training regimen. I was having to make myself really uncomfortable. I think during the process of that, I lost like 35 pounds. So I lost a lot of strength. But I gained a significant amount of
in a
stamina.
different way. Yeah.
So I think it kind of, going back to what I was getting at is, our journey of fitness changes as our career path changes, as our lifestyle changes. My dad always told me, my dad is just turned 83.
Wow.
Back in July. Yeah. And I literally watched him on his 83rd birthday bench press 225. Like the guy is a freaking freak of nature.
Freak.
Like I had to help him a little bit, but he mostly got it by himself.
Yeah, he's 83 though. 225 pounds is not a joke. That's pretty awesome.
So I was fortunate in that regard to kind of watch my dad growing up. It was just a part of life, and I think that's why it became a part of life for me, because he emulated that role of like the dude was on a walking route for like he was a post letter carrier for the U.S. United States Postal Service for 37 years. I think 30 of those years he was on a walking route.
Wow.
Most of the time walking 10 to 15 miles a day, and then he would still come home and get his workout in. Like that's how dedicated he was, and I think that's quite frankly why I turned out the way that I did was from watching him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, product of your background. I want to touch on a couple things real quick, Mike. You mentioned in your training for your wellness day that you were and I know the agency right before I left was working on some mental health stuff. Obviously,
Mm.
obviously my previous agency, your agency, has had some very difficult last 6-8 months with personnel and mental health. What are you guys doing for that? What's the plan? And this is kind of really what our podcast is all about. Fitness is included in all of that, but how are we keeping the cops in check up here? What's the plan? What are we doing?
So I think moving forward, our plan is to. I don't know if you're familiar with the Boulder Crest Foundation.
I am. Well, I should say I've just recently been exposed to it. Awesome organization. There's one in Sonoyta, one in Virginia, right? And they do
Correct.
veterans with PTSD, as well as I should clarify that, combat veterans with PTSD, and then also first responders. And so that's cool. So explain a little bit of your connection with that.
So our current commander, and we have so just kind of our wellness team structure. We have one lieutenant. We had a sergeant, and we're trying to identify another one. Our sergeant was a keystone member of the team, and he just retired after 21 years of service. So we're trying to identify a new sergeant for our wellness team, and then there's about I told you that initially it was about 4. That team has grown to 14.
Oh wow.
So went
Yeah.
from 4 to 14 in the span of about 4 years. Um, so our lieutenant was just trying to be a little proactive and kind of connected with Boulder Crest. And I believe in February of this year, 2021, we went out to Boulder Crest for a tour of the facility. And I can tell you, just surely being out there for like a few hours, not having gone through the program or anything, it was like basically a tour of this facility. I immediately felt better. Um, this year, I changed into a new assignment, and the assignment is it's more administratively heavy. Um, and there's a lot of just taking care of others. Essentially, what I like to do is just kind of take care of people. So along with that, though, you're kind of vicariously living other people's stress.
Oh yeah.
Through conversation, through critical incidents, through a wide variety of ways that you're vicariously kind of exposed to other people's stress. And I can tell you, after being at Boulder Crest for just a few hours, I immediately felt better about everything that had been going on. So we've had a couple of people go through their actual, it's called post-traumatic growth, trying to, again, destigmatize the whole post-traumatic stress disorder. They've kind of coined the phrase that, we recognize that the trauma is going to be there, but we want to grow from that trauma. We want to kind of build that resiliency to not only live with the trauma, but thrive despite the trauma that has occurred. So we've been networking with Boulder Crest a lot, and I can't really speak to the program as much as some of the attendees could. But we are figuring out a way, and we are getting, as we speak, funding and resources to start sending people to Boulder Crest. And there's a couple key factors in that. I think Joe Wood is the director, at least of the Sonoyta program, and he's done a lot of work on his end to not only make it easy for our people to kind of go through the program, but now they actually get AZ Post credit for going through that program. So we're allowed a couple of things because of that. We are allowed to, there's a possibility of giving our department members department time to go there, so they're not having to use their own personal vacation leave to go attend the course. And by and large, at no cost to the member that goes to the retreat. So that should be coming down the pipeline relatively quickly.
So my feeling is on those types of programs, and I don't know enough about that program, but from what I hear and see and research, I think it sounds phenomenal, and it's a hell of a lot better than not doing anything. I would love to see us get to a point in law enforcement where if you've been involved in a lethal encounter, if you've been involved in these really traumatic incidents, and I could just rattle off a few to so that people can understand what I mean. The death of a child, those types of calls, child drowning, a child abuse, people that die in fires. I think those are pretty brutal, especially when you can't get them and help them. Those things that, from what I'm seeing and my own personal experience, they really get to us. I would love to see us that you go to those incidents and you go to that resort afterwards and you get treated just like you would if you got shot or stabbed or hurt or fell off your whatever, a rooftop while doing a search and you broke your leg. You would immediately go to the hospital for treatment. I think the same has to be applied without mandate. It just has to become normal, routine, and accepted outside of the stigma for us to be mentally treated as well and get that disconnect and not keep going and going and going until things happen. That's just my personal hope that someday we can afford and have the thing. How do you feel about that?
No, I completely agree. And when Joe was at our facility and he was giving this, there's a corresponding book to their program. It's called Struggle Well. So we're all going to struggle, but they want you to struggle well and figure out ways to kind of, deal with your struggles and grow from them. Because it's inevitable, especially if you're a cop in a big agency.
It's going to happen.
Those incidents that you mentioned, it's going to happen, and it's happened to me. I'm certain it's happened to you, where you go to one of those calls, and for me, it's always the kid ones. The kid ones just they do something to me that I can't even explain. I'm gonna really try hard not to tear up as we're talking about it.
I've got a few under my belt, and they're rough. They're bad.
They're impactful. Yeah. And kind of what you said along the lines of like, if you tore your ACL on duty, you would go to the hospital
immediately.
To me, one of those calls is like literally tearing the ACL up here.
Yeah.
Up top. Arguably sometimes worse. And so one of the things that Joe kind of hit on was when Boulder Crest started to really first they were focused on the wounded veterans, like with the physical wounds that you can actually see. And Joe kind of segued into the story as he was giving this talk of they were out at the retreat. And I'm probably going to butcher the story, but I'm going to get to the nuts and bolts of it. But they were out at the retreat, and there was a wife who was a friend of one of the spouses whose significant other had been critically injured in battle, where he lost like either a leg or both legs. And they started talking, just a random conversation kind of sparked between some Boulder Crest staff and this friend of the wife, who was just kind of there, maybe supporting her other friend. And that conversation led something to the fact of like, she said, "Oh man, I wish my husband could come here, but he's never going to be able to." And the staff member said, "Well, why not?" She said, "Because you can't see his injuries. They're all up here."
Yeah.
And to me, that really kind of resonated because, I know for a fact, especially, I really worry, about our soldiers who start at like 18-year mark, or and similarly, our police officers start at that 21-year-old mark. To me, like,
the brain's not developed yet.
It's not ready.
Yeah.
It's not ready to see some of that stuff, And even me, I was 23 when I started, and I don't think I was even ready at 23. And I grew up in a pretty rough area, and I had already been exposed to some of the going on the goings on of ODS Team One, Southside Tucson, and I was exposed to that at an early age, and I still don't think that I was ready
Yeah.
to see some of the things that I saw. And I think people respond differently. Different personalities react to certain incidents differently, and the way your brain kind of receives and processes information. Not everyone does that the same. A call that affects you could not have that same effect on me. A call that affects me, it could be the exact same call, and it's going to affect us differently. So I think that we are definitely headed in the right direction. However, at the same time, I do believe that we are still have a lot of work ahead of us. Um, we just, especially with like we were chatting a little bit before we hit the record button. Just some of the events of 2020 alone. You talk about COVID. You talk about the events in Minneapolis last year. The riots across the country. All these things that have kind of happened that have kind of cumulatively created a lot of trauma for every law enforcement officer in the country, because an event that happened in Minneapolis that resonated here in my town in Tucson.
Yeah.
It was really impactful, even though it happened. I don't know what that is, 1,500 miles away. We were still feeling some of the backlash of those events, and it hasn't been easy to deal with. I think it's caused a lot of cops to be resentful. I think it's created a really toxic work environment, and a lot of that, as you know, I just try to, you follow me on social media, I reciprocate that. I follow you, and I think we both try to just kind of put a lot of positivity out there, because almost everywhere where you go, no matter what kind of call you're on, what kind of day you're having, you can find something positive in that day. And that, I think that all kind of comes back to the person, how that person, what's their home life like? What's their work life like? What are they going through at work? What are they going through at home? All those things are contributing factors to, how they feel from day to day to day.
Yeah, so, segmenting into the last part of what I wanted to talk to you about, and it's perfect, talking about that work-life balance. I've blown the race car. I mean, there's just no better. I self-induced. I also got given a big task of training, and where I'm going with this was sometimes administrative jobs, like you were talking about earlier, are even in my eyes, occasionally more destructive in some ways to you as a person, to you as a cop, than patrol. The patrol has its own thing, but I actually would have been happy if I was in patrol. Backing up 4 or 5 years ago. Where I'm going with this is work-life balance is huge. And this is kind of where I'm at with this. That I learned it really, really sunk in for me. Late 2019, and evolved to this point. I was at my breaking point. Put your mask on first. And here's where I'm going with this. When you're on the airplane and they're giving you the safety instructions, they always tell you, put on your mask before you put it on your child. And you're sitting there thinking to yourself as a logical adult, like, why in the fuck would I do that? That's my kid. But it makes sense, because you have to take care of yourself. You can't take care of your kid. You can't take care of your agency. You can't take care of your peers and your community if you're a wreck, if you're a mess. So I think you and I are similar in this. I think you and I we want to help others. We want to do a good job. We want to do a multiple of things. Our plate is a runneth over almost all the time. How have you kind of gotten through that? How have you kept it all squared away to this point and dealing with 2020, 2021?
You know what? And I kind of got in trouble with a family member about this. But to me, I really felt like, and I want to tread lightly when I say this, because I know COVID affected a lot of people, and a lot of people lost loved ones. And I completely understand that, and I'm not trying to draw away from that at all. But for me individually, me and my family, COVID was a little bit of a blessing, to be honest. because I will tell you what, and I know you were the same way. I run 110 miles an hour, and I want to be involved in everything that I can get my hands on, which corresponds to working more hours. It corresponds to late nights, and for me, COVID really put a pause on all that. There wasn't as much training being dealt out. There wasn't as much work to be done. I was working 40, maybe 44, 45 hours a week, which is abnormally really, really low for me. And I was dad.
Yeah.
I was dad again. And I got to be home. We got to have dinner together. We were going to the park every day. We were spending much more time as a family. And it was a really big wake-up call.
There were a few factors in why I retired earlier than I wanted to, and that was the biggest one for me. Spot on, 100%. COVID opened my eyes to, hey, jackass, you've been running at, Mach 1 speed for, at that point, 18, 19 years. And it doesn't have to be like that. And I wish I would have learned that earlier in my career, way earlier. It's okay to say no to every project, some projects, whatever. It's okay to say, no, I cannot help you this week. I'd love to. You're amazing. And I want to do this project with you, but I can't. I wish I would have learned that long time ago. And I'm sure I was told by some good friends, but so if anybody takes anything away from this, learn to say no to certain things. Good friend of ours, he's a supervisor. He told me, he goes, I never understood you, man. I knew right where the line was in the sand. Yeah. He goes, but you always just went an extra, a little bit. But so COVID happens. You got life in check. You have this epiphany. I really enjoy, spending more time. I love being a dad, but I want to do more.
Yeah. So and I think we've talked about this before. On different just offline conversations is for me as a family man, it meant a lot, and I know you did the same. It meant a lot for my kids to be raised by their mom. So for me that meant all right, that's cool. I want to make that happen. I grew up with my mom at home. My wife grew up with her mom at home. It was very, very important for us to make that happen for our kids, and I would tell you it's paid dividends. It has paid dividends for our kids to be raised by their mom. She's one of the best human beings I got really lucky. I'll say that. But unfortunately, that means I got to carry an extra load. I got to put a few extra rocks in my bag, and I got to carry those rocks, a few extra miles to make all those ends meet. For that to be sustainable for us. And fortunately, again, like I said, I've been blessed. I've been blessed in my career where most of the time I am having to turn work away because I do want to go home, and read those bedtime stories and have dinner and, just be a good dad. And a lot of that stems back to, what I was talking about earlier with my dad is I grew up South Side. Obviously didn't always have, the coolest clothes and all the luxuries and toys growing up. But one thing that I was always blessed with was my parents' time. And I'm trying to really, really kind of pay that back to my kids and be there for, the cheerleading and the soccer and the t-ball and all those things. And, quite frankly, just being there when it's time to read a bedtime story. It's time to tuck him in for bed at night. I got this. I wish I could turn my computer around, but I have this sign up on my desk, and it's basically a piece of white paper that I printed off on a computer, and all it says three things. It says, "Be a good husband, be a good father, and be a good member of this agency." And obviously, first and foremost, my relationship with God is always number one. But those three things, if I can do those three things on a daily basis, be a good husband, be a good father, and just be a good member of this agency, I feel like I've accomplished something for the day.
Yeah, for sure. So managing a marriage, that's not always easy, man. When you're going and going and going, she's got kids, pretty much 24/7. How do you balance that?
Yeah, so we have a really, really good relationship. We are really, really good communicators. Most of that I can attribute that to her. Like before I met her, I was not that great at talking about stuff. And I just kind of like just really bottled stuff up. But she knows me well enough where she can automatically tell when something's bothering me, and she is relentless, relentless about getting it out. We always try to do two things: never go to bed mad,
Yeah.
and then we never, really tell anybody about our problems outside our little two-person circle, to include our parents. And I think that's been huge. I've seen so many people make that mistake before. Of when something goes wrong in a marriage, automatically I go run to tell my parents. Well, what's going to be their preconceived notion of her from now on?
Yeah.
They're going to automatically assume that it's her fault no matter what, and vice versa. That works too. That works both ways. If that happens on her end, every time I go to her house, I'm going to be getting the stink eye. And we tackle our problems, we come to some sort of a resolution, and we figure it out, and we drop it and we let it go. There's another important factor in that too. Is we're emulating what a good, healthy relationship looks like to both of our kids. You know, and they're growing up looking like, hey, it's okay to argue. It's okay to
Yeah.
not see eye to eye on every issue, but you do have to work through your problems, and you can't ignore them. You can't just push them to the side. You have to address them. You have to talk about them, and you have to make that important. And you have to make the time to handle those issues. That way, you're not, holding on to that resentment for weeks or months or years at a time. No, those issues are getting resolved on a daily basis, and they never bottle up to where it's, some sort of an explosion where we're screaming at each other or something. So that is important to us too. We're just trying to model what a good relationship between a man and a woman, what that should look like, so they can grow up and they can be healthy adults. And we've always, we kind of joke with each other of like, hey, not every group of parents is going to produce a doctor or a lawyer or some sort of engineer, but we can all produce good people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's starts with how you act as a person in front of your kids, and I've learned that too recently. It's funny because my daughter connects with me very well because we're almost identical. She is a maniac, emotional, like roller coaster, and my son, my oldest son, my middle son, he connects with my wife because they're just chill. They're Hawaii, laid back, and so you almost take and you'll see as your kids, get into those teenage years, when they start crafting their own identity, they're going to gravitate in some direction. And it's just interesting. I never would have guessed that as a parent early on 10 years ago. If you would have said, I would have never said my daughter would be, we're spitting image. In fact, it's kind of cool for me because the biggest lessons I've learned about me maintaining my emotions and also communicating better has been teaching her this as a teenager. Like, hey, you can't, I know, throwing stones at a glass house here, but you can't fucking fire off at everyone, at the drop of a dime. And so it's just kind of cool that part, really resonates as a parent. And being around, where I'm going with this, being around for that is huge. I wish,
Yeah.
I'm glad and I'm lucky and I'm fortunate and I'm privileged that I could retire and move on to another chapter in my life, but also be with my kids a lot more now and to kind of develop that stuff. So if you're that cop that's always working off duty, always everywhere else but with your family, take a minute and think about it. That's just my advice, is actually take a few days and think about it heavily, because they're more important than that job, in my opinion. It's money's money. That's great, but balance that. Don't get caught up in lifestyle more than parenting, more than being a husband. If that makes sense, I guess.
No, it totally makes sense, and that's I think the biggest thing that I've learned, because I do unfortunately I end up working a lot, but two things: when I'm home, I'm just dad. I don't let anything else get in the way of that. Barring my primary assignment, they call it 12 o'clock or
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning. Then I gotta go. You know what I mean? But when I'm home, it's not. I'm not talking to the guys on the text thread. I'm not. I'm not sucked into the television. Outside playing with them. I'm doing whatever they want to do. They're crawling all over me half the time. And that's kind of, I was fortunate in a sense to, I did, when I was doing the whole patrol thing, I didn't have to worry about having young kids because I had my kids later in my career. I believe when I had my daughter, I already had 9 years on, so I already had a fair amount of seniority. I was already in a special assignment. I wasn't working the 17 to 03 or the 21 to 07 shifts, where, I was gone a lot. I was pretty fortunate in the sense that I had them later. So they're 6. My daughter's 6 and my son's 2. He's about to be 3 in January. So they never had to live through that. And to me, I'm blessed because I got to do all the fun stuff working the 17 to 03 and doing all the night shift stuff, and I got a lot of that out of my system. And now for me, it's just more about giving back and paying it forward and making sure that we're making good. I'm going to use the term, we're making good 84s. 84 is our code for backup here at my agency. We're making good backup officers for people, and we're giving them the best training possible. Just left formerly a 2-year stint of being a field training officer again, and that was my number one goal was to help them be the best version of themselves that they could be, and give them some of the tools that guys like you, quite frankly, gave to me when I was an up and coming officer. So I'm just trying to pay all that forward.
Mike, you're doing an exceptional job, dude. I really, really, I've said this before to you that, one, I work hard. I don't know how you do it some days. I look at you and I go, God dang, I do, I do a lot of work, but this guy, he's got me beat. But the way you go at it is different. Your passion for what you do, it really shows. And, you're one of, I can think of, 3 or 4 people that are way up here with positive all the time. Like just even when shit is just bad everywhere, you just seem to find that way, and that's a good thing. So when we see all these officers leaving for different reasons, and I don't fault them, one of them, and knowing that guys like you are still around, I think that's really is a blessing. I've really taken a step back from almost a year of retirement to kind of look and go, oh my God, we don't have any cops, and what we have is diminishing fast, and so. One of the things we do with this podcast is just really value the people that we have still doing it out there every day, because it takes a really special kind of person to be a cop nowadays. And so we thank you, dude. You keep doing what you're doing. We hope the best for you in your career. Remember, put your mask on first. Take care of yourself. At some point, these call-outs have to stop, and probably sooner than later, and take that time with your family. Any parting words?
No, I just, guys, we, for people that are, I'm assuming the majority of these listeners on your podcast are either cops or aspiring cops. For those of you guys that are aspiring cops, we need good people. We need you. The country needs you. Your community needs you. It's really is, and I say this wholeheartedly, it really is a dying breed of people that want to go out there and truly just stop bad guys from doing bad things. We're getting a lot of good officers. Don't get me wrong, but those meat eaters that want to just go out there and prevent really bad people from doing really bad things to people that are completely helpless, a little bit more few far between, harder to find. And for those of you guys that are just still chugging along, keep crawling your way to that finish line. It's it's a very rewarding career. It's very, very easy to succumb to the negativities, but I'm sure you can attest to this, Dan. Once you're at that finish line, and you're able to explore those other options, those other career paths, especially if you're young enough to do that, and segue, start another chapter of your life, get through this hurdle. And then, do that other thing that you want to do. Start crafting your resume. Start crafting your exit plan, and don't don't leave this career without some sort of a plan. You got to start crafting your resume, crafting your tools to go out there and make yourself marketable, so you can. There is life after police work, and you're living proof of that, buddy.
I appreciate that. Hopefully I've got another good 25, 30 years in me. So that's my goal is, you know me, man. I try to, I put my head down and I drive forward when people tell me I can't do something, and I want to take this city for every fucking dime I can for the next 30 years in my retirement. But hey, dude, it has absolutely been my honor and privilege to work with you in patrol and at training, and personally, as a friend to you. Keep doing what you're doing. We wish you nothing but good health and safety. This is going to wrap up the episode of Talking Filthy Police podcast, sponsored by Filthy Pirate Coffee. My good friend Mike G. Peace. Filthy Pirates, we hope you all enjoyed the show today. Hit that like and subscribe button to follow us on our YouTube channel. Check us out at www.filthypirate.coffee, or come see us to sample our amazing coffee at our store. Stay caffeinated and give no quarters to your morning.